The Apostle Paul writes in the book of Ephesians, chapter 5 and verse 11, "Take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them." The reason that he writes that is because what he calls the unfruitful works of darkness are not always readily apparent that that's what they are. And that's why Christians are called to expose those things. Satan masquerades as an angel of light. If he presented himself as he truly is, no one would follow him. But instead, he presents himself, he presents his arguments, he tries to convince the world that what he is doing is actually good when it's not good. It is evil. And that's why Isaiah chapter 5 says, "Woe to those who call good evil and evil good." Instead of doing that, we are called through the Apostle Paul by the Holy Spirit to expose those things which look on the outside or sound on the outside like they might be a good thing if we see that they're actually not, and to let the world know that. So I want to do that today in probably my most controversial video that I've ever made, and I want to do it about a group which on the outside sounds like it would be something that everyone would agree with, except what they believe is actually completely and utterly evil and wicked and needs to be exposed. And that group is Black Lives Matter. All right. Now, Black Lives Matter is actually brilliant tagline, because it's something on the surface that no one in their right mind would ever disagree with. All right? To say that black people's lives have value and actually matter is something that everyone should say, well, of course they do. All people's lives matter because human beings are made in the image of God. That's the reason why black people's lives matter. That's the reason why white people's lives matter, or Chinese people or Hispanic people. Doesn't matter, okay, who they are. Everyone's life has value because they're made in the image of God. That's Genesis chapter 1. On the sixth day, God said, "Let us make man in our image, in our likeness. Let him rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, over all the creatures that move along the ground." Like, that gives life value. And so to come up with the idea for a group that has a tagline that anyone would normally agree with, and if they didn't agree with it, they would automatically be an outcast by society. Anyone who would say, "Oh, this group of people's lives don't matter," well, we know what we call those people, don't we? Like Nazis, right? Right. And that's the reason why what this group called Black Lives Matter is doing is so deceitful and brilliantly deceitful that I really feel the need to talk about it and expose it for what it really is. Because it's more than just a statement that the life of a certain group of people has value. It's more than that. What the group is what Ben Shapiro calls semantic overload. In other words, they take a phrase that means one thing, and then they add a bunch of things onto that phrase so that when a person says, "We support Black Lives Matter," it actually means more than, "I believe that the life of an African American person has value and matters." It actually is more than that. And they say so on their website. Okay, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. So the co-founder of the Black Lives Matter movement was a woman named Patrisse Cullors. You can go on YouTube, type in Patrisse, Cullors, I believe is how she spells her last name, and type in Marxism. Patrisse Cullors Marxism. And I'll get to that in a moment. But she says in an interview from the horse's mouth, she says, "We are trained Marxists." And I'll tell you in a moment why that's a problem. All right. But on the Black Lives Matter website, it says here, this is on a statement of blacklivesmatter.com in the tab What We Believe. It says here, "We disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement," as if that's some kind of requirement that society has. "We disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement by supporting each other as extended families and villages," quote unquote, "that collectively care for one another, especially our children, to the degree that mothers, parents, and children are comfortable." Notice it doesn't say fathers there. They don't believe that it's important for fathers to have any say in their children's lives. But think about it. It says here, this is a part of Black Lives Matter, that they want to disrupt the nuclear family. Well, what's a nuclear family? A mother, a father, and a child. That's what's called a nuclear family, all right? They want to disrupt that. Now, what that has to do with furthering the plight of African American people, I have no idea, because it seems to me that the problem, maybe the primary problem in the inner city, is that the nuclear family has been disrupted. And the fact that fathers, in large measure, by a much greater percentage in the inner city than anywhere else, that fathers are not a part of their children's lives is actually the problem with those places. And what they're saying on their website is they don't only want to continue that, they want to promote that. The removal of fathers from families. And then instead of fathers being a part of their children's lives, that the children should be collectively cared for by one another, especially by villages, and to the degree that mothers and parents and children are comfortable. Unbelievable. Just that in itself, as a sort of addition to this idea of Black Lives Matter, makes absolutely no sense. What does that have anything to do with the life of Black people and their lives having value and meaning and purpose and them mattering? I have no idea. Then they go on in the very next paragraph and they say this: "We foster a queer affirming network. When we gather, we do so with the intention of freeing ourselves from the tight grip of heteronormative thinking." Like, in other words, the kind of thinking that human beings have held for the entirety of human history, that men and women should be together, that biology itself teaches us that. They want to free themselves from the tight grip of heteronormative thinking. How does that have anything to do with Black people's lives mattering? They say earlier on in their statement, "Every day we recommit to healing ourselves and each other and to co-creating alongside comrades, allies, and a family structure where each person feels seen, heard, and supported." Now, that word comrade is, and they say it a couple of different times here in this statement, that's just a dog whistle for communism. And to me, that's actually the most ironic part of this group, Black Lives Matter. Like I said before, that the co-founder, Patrisse Cullors, she says that she and her other co-founder are both trained activists and trained Marxists. Now, why does that matter? Well, it matters because Karl Marx was an atheist. He called religion the opiate of the masses. He didn't believe that God had any place at all in society. And his disciples, who were Mao Zedong and Vladimir Lenin and Joseph Stalin, they also believed in communism. They were Marxists too, and their regimes were atheistic regimes under which millions and millions and millions of people were murdered. Well, why were they murdered? Well, because if there's no God, then life has no meaning. And if life has no meaning, then nobody's life matters. Like, do I have to say anything else? This is so asinine, ludicrous, that a group which says that they exist to promote black people's lives believe a philosophy which says that no people's lives matter at all. Oh, snap. Like, do you see how contradictory and evil and wicked a group like this is? How no Christian could ever support a group like this? We must expose this. And I know that well-meaning people who only hear the words, the phrase Black Lives Matter, would of course agree with it. I agree with it. Of course black people's lives matter. Of course they do. But the semantic overload, I think about it like pork barrel spending that the Congress does, right? Like they'll have a bill, and the bill is, let's say it's on some kind of healthcare initiative. But in the fine print, in the small print on the bottom, it's not just healthcare, it's also an increase in the salaries of certain people, or some kind of a pipeline added in there that has nothing to do with healthcare, or some kind of rights for this group, or taking away rights for that group, and it's called pork barrel. Like they're adding more money into it that's hidden in the language of this is a bill about healthcare, when actually that's a very small amount of what the bill is that they're trying to pass. There's so much other stuff that's put in there. Well, that's what Black Lives Matter is. When a person says that I support Black Lives Matter, like, do you really know what you're saying? Do you know what you're supporting? Do you know that when you say that, you're supporting atheism? You're supporting communism? You're supporting transgenderism? You're supporting a destruction of the nuclear family? You're supporting taking away fathers from their families? Like, do you know that? That's what this is about. That's what it's about. And it's couched in language which sounds really good. Like, you know who would be brilliant at making up a phrase like that has so much other meaning to it, so much other semantic overload that and people don't even know it. Like kids, teenagers, they'd be like, Black Lives Matter. Like, who's Karl Marx? I don't know who that is. Right? Like, who would be so brilliant to make a phrase like that, to inspire a phrase like that? The devil, okay? Satan, the spirit that is now at work in the sons of disobedience. Like, that's who it is, obviously. And don't we see the fruit of it? Like, there is fruit that's coming out of what's called the Black Lives Matter movement right now. And that fruit is the fruit of destruction. It's the fruit of burning down buildings. It's the fruit of looting. It's the fruit of murder. How can anyone in their right mind support that? It's so evil. It's so evil. Friends, we need to wake up. Everything I've said right now, just look it up. Don't take it from me. Look it up. Go on blacklivesmatter.com. Look at their website. See what they say in the About section. Okay, go on YouTube and type in Patrisse Cullors, Cullors, and type in Marx, and you will see Marx, and you will see how she admits from her own mouth that these are the things that she believes. These are the things that Black Lives Matter supports. And I think that we need to do our best to obey the Apostle Paul's words and expose the unfruitful works of darkness. We're seeing that bad fruit, unfruit, all right? We're seeing it all over the place in Kenosha, Wisconsin, in Los Angeles, in Chicago, and even throughout the whole world now. And it's just satanic. It is. Sorry if this is offensive to you, but the truth is always offensive. The truth divides. And Jesus Christ came to bring a sword, to divide, actually, because truth divides from the truth from error. And I think we're called to do that. Know what you believe. Know what you're saying. God bless you. I love you all. The Lord be with you. Amen.